everybody, and welcome to the next conversation that I am privileged to have as part of the inaugural Empower-thon Summit fundraiser here at Parent Tween Foundation. Before I go any further, I want to say a deep, heartfelt, grateful thank you to Sharon Neiss-Arbess, our next guest, for doing what she does in the world, leaving the impact that she makes, but today, mostly for being with us. So Sharon, thank you so much.
Thank you. And there goes my noisy printer again, just burping. I don't know why that happened.
Perfect timing. No worries. No worries.
Hopefully they'll shut up.
For those of you who are tuning in, if you're not familiar with the Parent Tween Foundation, it is the nonprofit charitable leg of Parent Tween Connection. I'm Clarissa Constantine, and I'm the founder of this whole entity, and we are where parents go when they don't know where to go. We have community for families, we have community for professionals, and our goal is to introduce you to each other so that when parents need support, either for themselves or for their kids, you know where you can find those folks. And the Parent Tween Foundation has as its mission to bridge the financial gap that exists so frequently between families and the professionals who can support them. So, since it is a fundraiser, there is going to be a shameless request at the end. So stay tuned for that. But in the interim, we're going to talk with Sharon about getting up. So Sharon is a 3 times over parent of teenagers, actually young adults, I should say. Her youngest is 19 and her eldest is 23. And she's also the author of 2 books. The one that she just held up for the camera called Get Up.
Wait, I'll do it again. Ta-da!
There we go. Yep. Nice, cool green cover. And her other book is Me and My So-Called Friends. That's going to be intriguing to chat about. But so I want to start a little bit, Sharon. You were clear with me when we were doing our pre-live conversation. Oh, housekeeping tip, I forgot. Oh. We are live too, our Facebook group, our YouTube channel, and our LinkedIn page. If you've got questions and you'd like to ask them of Sharon as we chat, come on over to our Facebook group. I do have it open on the other monitor so that I can see your request to join and I can see your questions, or leave comments elsewhere, and we will get back to them as we can. So, Sharon, you had said to me clearly before we started, you said, Clarissa, look, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I've kind of been through the school of hard knocks, right? With your own 3 kids. You have a background in writing and copywriting and such. So you felt that you had a message to share. Let's go back a little bit and kind of set the stage about life with 3 teenagers in the house. Because the concept of getting up, you're like, hey, we all have stuff. We all have challenges. Let's kind of frame experience as mom with 3 teenagers.
Yes. So I live in Toronto and I have 3 actually adults right now, but one's still a teenager, and each kid brought something different to the table. So all 3 kids have their different strengths, have their different problems, and they're all just different. And the friends they bring to the house as well, I still spoke to them and I saw their problems and their strengths. So, for 18 years, it's been like a revolving door of different kids coming to the house. Mm-hmm. And it's been so much fun. It's also been scary. And it's also been, just so ambivalent. I didn't know exactly what was happening. I was just trying to do my best, and I'm still trying to do my best.
Sure. And I think that's most parents, right? And most people in relationship, period, but especially when it's a child for whom you have responsibility to, getting to adulthood safely. Yes. and as close to one piece as possible. Mm-hmm. I know you said one of the challenges, or one of the most challenging aspects for you with having teenagers, was not knowing where they were, not knowing what they were doing, praying that they were making good decisions, but never really being sure, learning to trust them. Mm-hmm. Can you expand on that a little?
Yeah. So, when they are older, they go to parties, and when parties happen, you're not there, and you just hope that they make wise choices. So, for example, my first book, Me and My So-Called Friends, tells a story of a 15-year-old girl who her friends change when she gets back from summer camp, and they're not the same friends that she used to know. So in one of the stories or excerpts that take place in the book is that she's a grade 9. and she goes to a party and there's alcohol and drugs. And what does she do? I'm not going to spoil it for you, but a very interesting story happened after a fifth grader, which is a little young for the book, but still read it. A fifth grader read the story. She actually stopped reading, went to one of her parents and said, this book is too mature for me. They're talking about alcohol and they're talking about drugs. And I'm just 10. I don't think that I should be reading this. That was the perfect conversation that I hoped would happen after a child would read the book. They would bring the story that is so relatable to the parent, and it would be a gateway to talk about what would you do. Otherwise, how do you start that difficult, embarrassing conversation?
I love it because at Parent Tween Connection, like one of the things that I always say to parents, and full disclosure for those of you listening whom I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, I'm actually not a mom, but I've been an SAT and ACT coach for 25 years. My husband is a teen mentor and youth coach. Between us, we've got 40 years of experience dealing with kids and families. And I can tell you that those kinds of conversations, Sharon, do not happen nearly as frequently as they need to. And like you said, we feel as the adults like they're difficult or embarrassing or whatever. But what I can tell you with 100% certitude is that if you're not having the conversation with your kids, if you're not part of it, 90% of the time they're having conversations elsewhere.
100%.
And you're not influencing that conversation.
Or
the other 10% is that they're not having the conversations at all. And I'm not sure which is worse, getting only peer influence or getting no influence at all or no guidance. I don't think either of them is good. And I think they both can have catastrophic endings. So the point that you're saying of like, I wrote this so that families will have conversations
exactly
is 100% in alignment with what our belief is, that like we as the adults with the fully formed, prefrontal cortex, we have to start these conversations.
I hope that it's every parent's dream, it is mine at least, for their kids to come to talk to them about stuff. You kind of want to know what's going on. Not saying that I'm going to show up at the party as like, the drug or the alcohol police,
right?
But just so they're prepared and they know what they want to do.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got the Me and My So-Called Friends,
yes,
with great stories and real life examples,
yes,
geared toward, and frankly, for parents and kids to read as conversation starters, right?
Yes.
And the Get Up, again, title of our conversation today is How to Get Up.
So this is a different type of book. This is a book that is divided into 4 parts. The first part is a very short story. We're talking 500 words, like a blog you would see on a website or maybe a post on Instagram, that tells like a story that I went through, an experience that I had. And then there are functional exercises to follow it. And then I have asked over 60 mentors, what would you tell your teenage self? And these quotes are just incredible. They're so good that I actually went further and personally interviewed each and every one of them that you can find on my website. So it just goes further than the quote that they shared in the book. And it really shows some underlining meaning and who they're about.
Right.
But these stories are also very relatable. I mean, they're nonfiction, and it could be as simple as being on a school trip and knowing in your gut that this isn't the group that I want to be on. And I think I have to make a move. There is nothing wrong with listening to your inner self and moving forward with what you really want to do. And I was so happy that I did that on my school trip that I talk about in the book.
Yeah. Awesome.
Met my closest friends on that school trip and just was complete relief. So
awesome.
I listened to my gut.
And so that's one of the things that, we talk about, like both for parents and for kids, right? We all have rough times. There are always going to be circumstances where we have gray skies. Sometimes it's thunderclouds and tornadoes and hurricanes, it feels like, personally, right?
Mhm.
And so the whole idea, as you're saying, behind Get Up is like, you can get up, number one. And you have 3 takeaways that you wanted to share with listeners that you do go into more depth about in the book, Get Up.
Mhm.
But the first one that you said, and we're going to come back to listen to your gut, but number one, I think, is an underpinning, is that you will get through this. Can you expand on that a little bit? Like, I can hear a teenager going through something that feels catastrophic, right? Something massive. I can hear the teenager looking at you, the adult, because let's be honest, for many teens, adults don't know jack, right? And going like, how the heck do you know I'm going to get through this?
It's like, what immediately comes to mind is, will this situation matter in 5 years? If you really think about it, like, for example, I'm just something that just popped into my head. Buying a pair of pants that you to a party and you just don't feel good in them. You should have wore the jeans that were in the wash. I don't know. It just came into my head. In 5 years, will this party matter? Like, really? But you can still acknowledge that you feel uncomfortable in these pants and you want to wear the other ones. You can still acknowledge that you shouldn't have gone to the party. Maybe you should have gone to the party. It's a short term. It's like success is also short term. In 5 years, it'll be over. When you go through a hard time, this too shall pass. So everything in life will pass. The good stuff, the bad stuff, the medium stuff. It
I
just
like that, because
passes.
that's one of the questions that I learned from a mentor somewhere along the line, was to ask, is this going to matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months,
Exactly.
or 5 years? And I like the fact that you just like cut straight to the chase and be like, is it going to matter in 5 years? And I think that speaks to parents too, right? Some of the other conversations that we've had as part of Empowerthon and other former, podcast guests and such have talked about like parenting with the end in mind, right? Like you said, Sharon, your dream is to ultimately have a situation with your adult children that where they feel comfortable in talking to you about things. But that doesn't just happen once they reach adulthood. It's that you really wanted to be that person that they felt comfortable talking to along the way. And if that's the case for our listeners, that they want to be that person, keeping that end vision in mind. And this is another way to do that, right? Is go, okay, is this, whatever the issue is that your kid is doing that they're pissing you off, because we know it happens in every family, or whatever your spouse or your former spouse, now co-parent, is doing, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And going, look, this particular circumstance, is it going to matter 5 years from now? And if the answer is no, it's a little bit easier to let it go. But if the answer is yes, then it's easier to say, okay, no, this is something I do need to sink my teeth into, or dig my heels in about as well. It's a way of going, okay, I know I'm going to get there. I know I can survive, but it's also a litmus of like, how big of a deal am I going to make of this? Is this the hill I'm going to die on, so to speak?
Yes, exactly.
So then with that, sometimes we don't know the answer. Like, is it going to matter in 5 years? And this is circling back to listening to your gut. Tell me a bit more about that. How do I know to listen? Like, okay, I know to listen, but how do I listen? And why is it
How do
important?
you eat it's unfortunately, I think this comes with practice.
Okay.
It's like something gnawing at you that you can't get out of your head. Like, I have to go back to the story with the school trip where I just didn't feel comfortable on the group of kids that I was placed with. And we were like 30 kids into a room and we were divided by 15 and 15. And I just kept looking over my shoulder, wanting to be in the other group. They were talking my language. It was just easier. It seemed easier. My body was almost like moving towards that group. And it
Okay.
was just right. I came home. I was like, I just got to switch groups. I just have to do it. I was just listening to what my body was telling me.
Interesting. Okay. We do
Mhm.
also, if that resonates for you folks who are listening, and if you want to dig into that, we've got a couple of other conversations where we did some of that, all of our conversations in Empowerthon are on our YouTube channel under the Empowerthon playlist. So going back and taking a look at some of those, there's a number of them. I don't want to reference all of them now, but several of them, this concept of listening to your gut, listening to like your inner knowing has been a common theme. So pay attention if you're hearing it for like the third or the fourth time. So then, Sharon, you said the third piece that can help you get up, that can help you, even the thought that just came to me is like getting through the hard times, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is surrounding yourself with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Exactly. And that even we can start with social media. You know how people tell you to stop, to unfollow people that drain you, people that you feel like you're comparing yourself to them, and
Mhm.
they make you feel intimidated. And it's the same. And I follow that same rule with my friends as I
Mhm.
follow on social media. I only follow people that uplift me, have something wise to say, and I choose the people who I surround myself with in the same realm. That they're bright, they're supportive, they listen, they just don't give me an answer like, "Oh, just do this." They hold my hand.
Right.
If necessary, I reach for professional help. It's all about finding your support group because you can't go about it alone. As they always say, it takes a village to raise a child. It also
Mhm.
takes a village to help a parent. If you think
Very
about
much so.
it. Mhm.
Yep.
You need your
Well,
friends.
and I think that further extends, to the books that you read, i.e., you've got two books that are great resources for families, the podcasts that you listen to,
Mhm.
the radio stations that you listen to. I know, I prefer a certain genre of music, but sometimes the chatter on a regular television or regular radio station drives me out of my mind. And so while I prefer to listen to the music, I'll flip stations, kind of like when commercials used to come on in the old days when we had commercials on television, right? Like I would switch the channel just because I don't want to hear the chatter. But I think that falls in line with a concept that I've heard, which is to find mentors, not just about your peers who are your support group, and your safety net, but finding those mentors. And people are like, well, how do I find a mentor? Well, it's easier than ever to go find fantastic interviews on YouTube. Hopefully somebody hears ours and sees this conversation as a style of mentorship, or, again, podcasts, and there's so many good resources out there that I think that expands to not just the people in your sphere or who you follow on social media, but other resources as well.
Mhm.
Awesome. And I
Exactly.
like that these are like super straightforward. You've given us some really good action items. Number one, you'll get through this. The question to ask yourself is, will this matter in 5 years? And that at least gives you a vision of 5 years from now. Listening to your gut, listening to your body, and paying attention if you've got some physical pull towards something, or if a thought just won't go away. Or like for me, sometimes it's a feeling in the pit of my stomach that I just have to stop and like breathe. You'd mentioned breathing. And for me, I have to journal on it and be like, okay, what is really going on here? Because that's how the thoughts come out for me. And then actively surrounding yourself with people who are going to be a positive influence for you.
Mhm, mhm.
Love
May
it.
I read an excerpt, or a not an excerpt, but a mentor memo from the book Get Up?
Absolutely. Please do. Yeah.
Okay, so this is just a quote from, I'm just going to choose one that I really like. Okay, here's a great one. This is from Mentor Memo. This is one of the 60 mentors that I asked, what would you tell your teenage self? Make your default setting to help. Be willing to help anyone at any time, especially before you are asked. That's by Rob Storm. He's a friend. And I think that making yourself available to help other people is such a win-win. You're
Hmm.
helping somebody without even being asked, and then it makes you feel so good that you did such a good deed.
Hmm.
I mean, isn't that powerful?
Absolutely. It is. Well,
It
and
doesn't
and
cost anything.
that's important, I think, for parents to see and for parents to model and replicate, or model and support in their teenagers, because like one of the driving factors for us at Parent Tween Connection is that the more knowledgeable the knowledgeable and supported parents feel, the better they can connect with their teenagers, And ultimately, the fewer kids we're going to lose to suicide. Studies have shown that kids who feel a connection, well, people, but especially teenagers, who feel a connection to something that is larger than themselves, tend to have lower levels of depression and anxiety and a lower rate of suicidal ideation. So I love that, because by putting yourself out there and helping other people, it helps you intrinsically recognize that you have value just for being you, when you, especially when you have that attitude of helping others, and it gives you a tie to a community that wouldn't necessarily exist otherwise. I'm so glad you brought that one up.
Me too. And I just flipped to it too, which is wild.
Yeah.
One of my
We
favorite
always
ones.
find the right message that we need.
I know.
All right,
Everybody needs them.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say a huge thank you to Sharon. This has been fantastic. Thank you for the books that you
This has
shared.
been a lot of fun.
All of the links to find Sharon anywhere online are in the descriptions of the events, whether on our YouTube channel, on our LinkedIn page, or in our Facebook group. And again, I warned you there was going to be a shameless request. Here it comes. Given that this is a fundraiser and you found that you got good information from our conversation with Sharon today, the best way that you can say thank you is by making a donation through the link in the description. It's just got her name at the very end of the link so that she gets it adds to the tally of what she's helped us generate. And to let you know, we do have a little bit of a friendly contest going on among our speakers, that whoever is our fundraisingist, as I've called it, speaker, we will donate 20% of the donations that they help us generate to a family or teen focused nonprofit of their choice. And the organization that Sharon chose is the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. Sharon, can you tell us a little bit about what they do beyond what the name tells us, and why they're important to you?
It's such an incredible hospital. It's this huge mecca of love and help and research. And my oldest son needed their services when he was late to walk, and he went to use the physiotherapy there, and they were just wonderful. He now bikes and runs and great. But just, I've known so many kids who've had, have just gone there, and it was just a wonderful experience, very rewarding. And I have friends who work there too. So
good.
Just well, really
and you know, as much as we appreciate your support here today, Sharon, as we launched the Parent Tween Foundation, we just got our approval as a nonprofit right around the holidays between 2022 and 23.
Congratulations.
So thank you. This is our first effort toward bringing in support and actually being able to start pairing families and professionals. But we're not the only ones that are looking to do good work. There are others that are, you know, have gone before us. There are other organizations that are well ahead of us in terms of fundraising and helping families. And there are some that are coming up on our heels that are, you know, not yet formed. And we want to support as many as we can, because to your point, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to support a family. And it takes a village to help fund a lot of the support that's out there. So that's why I'm really focused on helping other entities as we grow too. So thanks so much for nominating them.
Of course. Great.
This awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Again, please take a moment to follow the link in the description and support through Sharon's link so that we can start helping some more kids. So thanks so much, Sharon. And thanks to everyone listening. Bye, everybody.